Hey, welcome in. It is time for our first ever front office dispatch here on the SDH network, presented by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. Caroline Hood and Madison Cruz have already taken you through the training ground dispatch with Brooks Lennon and Ronnie Dyla. I'm Jason Longshore, and I wanted to touch on some of the elements of Chris Henderson's media availability today that I thought were interesting as the transfer window in Major League Soccer is now open. Chris is the chief soccer officer for Atlanta United, sporting director as well. And he will be leading the charge here in the transfer window for the club. We already know that Enea Mihai is into the team now. He is training. He will be available on Saturday, according to Ronnie Dyla. We'll see how long he can play, where his fitness is. He's been working out individually, but individual fitness and soccer fitness, match fitness, two very different things. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see with that. But Chris spoke about a lot of different elements of where the club is right now, and we'll kind of go through these and react to them a little bit. Let's start with the first question from Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about an update on President and CEO Garth Lagerwey.
Yeah, we're constantly communicating. He's some days are harder than others, but yesterday he said was a pretty good day.
Okay.
So yeah, we're supporting him. We're communicating with him things that are going on here, and a lot of it is just like giving the information. But yeah, we're with him every day. Everyone is here. At the All-Star game, a lot of people came up, asking questions, how he's doing. So it shows how many people care about him. But yeah, he's fighting through it, and Garth's a tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
Next clip on this front office dispatch that I wanted to talk about was kind of a part of a question from Doug about where things are at the moment in this transfer window and some of the rumors out there. I think, as Atlanta United and pretty much any AMBSE organization, the Falcons don't do this either. You don't talk about what is being reported as rumor out there. You'll get comments when things are done. But Chris talked about where things are right now and some of the ways that he is looking to upgrade this current team. Here's Chris Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, the rumors have been out there. I don't want to comment on something until it's confirmed. Like when we make an announcement, then we'll all know. And there's a lot of things that can happen in deals in the last minute that could throw it off. Yeah, I think we focused coming into this window. We've wanted to improve the team. We feel like we need to do some things to support our DPs, and that is, some of the build around them. I think improving our defense, and I say it as attacking and defending is the whole team. It isn't a particular line. It's the whole team attacking and defending. But we need to improve our defending. I think that's put us in negative positions in some games. So we are addressing that. Enea is out here training. It's great to have him in the team, and we're looking forward to other additions that happen in the next few weeks.
Look, I don't think it's really any surprise trying to upgrade this team defensively, and I totally agree with Chris, and I think it's an element that has maybe grown over the years in the sport. Attackers have to defend, defenders have to attack. It's not about backline, midfield, and forward as completely separate entities. They all have to do the elements of all of them. But this team, from the defensive standpoint and maybe deeper in the team, it needs to be better. And I don't think it's a shock that you go out and you get Enea Mihai as your first addition to try to make this team better. Yes, there is a rumor about a center back from Spain. Yes, there is a rumor about a central midfielder from England who is also Colombian. Yes, these are out there, and we will talk about them as things come to fruition. Both make sense in terms of where this team could use upgrades. And if you look at what Atlanta United could be within the next month, depending on timing of getting guys in and what other moves might look like, if you have upgraded 3 of the 4 positions in that box, 2 center backs and 2 central midfielders, if you've upgraded 3 of the 4 spots and the other spot that's staying is Bartosz Szlich, who has been Atlanta United's best player in 2025, in my opinion. Okay, you feel a little bit better about the foundation of this group. You feel a little bit better about the things that you can build around for this team. Let's get into the next one. A question from Doug about kind of where things are in terms of, do you have to sell to be able to add? And we're never going to get into the deep specifics of salary cap and how much room you have and what you can do. We're not going to get that level of detail, I think, in this league, maybe ever, but at least not anytime soon, like we do in, or at least we do from an estimated standpoint when we talk NFL or NBA. But Chris gives you an update on kind of where things stand at that, in that area of how much you can do at the moment. Here's Chris Henderson.
Yeah, I think it's going to go both ways. As we bring players, we have to move players as well. So those come into it. Depends on what the deal is. There's, we have Johnny's injury. We can have a replacement for him on like for like salary. So there's some moves we can make that work with the cap, and then there's other moves we have to make to open up space to improve the team.
I think when you look at the specifics of what the reported salaries are, how much allocation money this team has to work with, how much they've spent in terms of those salaries, I think you can see that this team spent a lot of money to try to be better than they are right now. And that means to get better, to add a lot, you're probably gonna have to subtract to a degree. I do think there's room, because if you start to do the math, the trade of Sean De Silva at the end of the last window opened up a decent bit of cap space. You have the international spot now with the waiving of Mateusz Klich. You have a little bit more flexibility there. You have allocation money coming in the Efrain Morales deal. So you can add. You can't add unlimited. If you want to add more than what you can, and that's probably, again, with rumors out there about 2 additions, if you can add those 2 and not have to subtract anything else, okay. If you want to add more than that, I'm just kind of spitballing that you'd probably have to subtract somewhere to add another one beyond that. I feel like you might be stretching and reaching the limits of what you can add if you don't subtract something else beyond the 2 rumored additions, against center back and central midfielder. We'll see. Let's move into a response to my question about the balance between data and analytics versus kind of old school scouting and the different ways a player can fit. I think sometimes it's hard in data to quantify a player's personality, for example, and how that personality might fit with the other players in the team. Here's Chris's response to my question.
Yeah, great question. And I think, data analytics is something that we will continue to work with really closely throughout the whole process. I think Arjun leads a great department there. And I think that's where sports are going. But at the same time, you have the balance. As you mentioned, you have your scouts who are out there. They're meeting with teammates, they're meeting with the players, meeting with agents. You have to get a feeling whether this player is going to be a good fit for the roster we have and complement the players we have. So there's a lot that goes into a player signing, and there's probably 12 people involved in every signing, at least every signing, whether it has to do with visas or technical, tactical, how the player is going to adjust with his family in a new country. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I think data will be a part of everything we do.
Really thorough, and I think it shows you the level of detail that this club is trying to go through in bringing these additions in. It's not foolproof. It doesn't mean that you know everything possible about that player and how the chemistry will fit with players who are already in the building, but it gives you a much more educated look at what that addition could do. I do think there has to be a balance. I think the human element is so important in this, and maybe in this sport as much as any, in terms of how the fit of a group of people working together then shows up in how a team is successful or not on the field. There's no guarantees. And I think as many different things that you can look at and get information on and assess, it helps you make better decisions. It doesn't allow you to be perfect with your decisions. I don't think there's a system that's going to allow you to do that. Next up on this front office dispatch with Chris Henderson from his media availability today, Jose Prosopio of Latin Goles, he had a bit of a conversation with Chris about the academies and where things are currently. First up is Chris's response to kind of basically where he sees the academy right now, and then a follow up from Jose and an answer from Chris.
The academy's it's vitally important for the future of this club, and I think we might lead the league in the academy number of academy teams we have at this club. And you look at the success, and Javier Perez is running that right now, and he's director of methodology. He's doing a great job with our academy, and we have a great academy staff. But the success of our academy teams has been really good this year, and people at the league, other academy leaders are talking about how much talent is here in Georgia. So we're happy with some of the groups that are coming through. Are they ready for the first team? Not yet, but they will be, and there'll be a good generation coming through. And I think you'll probably see that in the next years as our second team gets younger, and we have some younger players playing professional.
And what do you see in a young player for them to move up to the first team?
I think that Ronnie's been really good at giving these guys opportunities to train with the first team. We have teenagers out there every single day. Cooper Sanchez, an example, Dom Chankwi. I think the experience they're getting daily, and Dom played in some games early this year, so getting first team experience for them is going to be so important. And then also what they can do at their own age when they come down. Can they be leaders? So it's a combination of when you move a player up, getting that experience, but keeping his confidence, and then moving him down and building him up as a leader. So it's a real balance, and we have Dennis Silva, who's our new IDP coach, who's been at FC Barcelona, and I think his focus primarily will be how can we get these top talents ready for the pros, and he's kind of the connector between the two.
It's interesting that Chris brings up Dennis Silva, the new IDP coach, and that role, and that's something that we'll be digging into during the fall and hopefully into the offseason on our coverage of Atlanta United. It's a role that is so critical for these players who are either in the academy and getting some time with the second team. Second team players who are on pro contracts and potentially moving up to the first team, or have a pro or an MLS deal already ready to go down the line. A player like Cooper Sanchez, for example, is someone that I have seen as a massive success story with Atlanta United too this season. He feels like a different personality on the field now in that central midfield role, and he's one that I see as an MLS player and an MLS contributor down the line. The movement from academy to second team to first team, or second team to first team, it's never a straight line, and it's not a perfect process. And it's kind of like going back to chemistry and how you don't necessarily know until you know, or till you see it, until you see them in that spot. You have to go back and forth. You have to go up and down. You have to see what that looks like. One of the things that helps ground those young players gets into a question that's coming up next from Madison Cruz about the balance in the structure of the second team between established players or older players who have different life experiences, different soccer experiences, and those young players, and how that fit needs to come together. Here's Chris's response.
How important is it for the second team, too, to have that balance between some of those academy players who are seeping through, but also having some of those players like Javier Armas, like Sal Mazzaferro, to kind of balance things out and to be those leaders to help them improve when they're in these situations professionally? Yeah,
it is balanced. Nick Sessik's another guy. You have guys who've been playing at that level, but also have experience to share with the young kids. It helps connect, and it's really important to have that balance. But I do think the next years we will start to get younger there. For me, that second team coaching job is one of the hardest jobs in the club. You have different players every single day. The first team's pulling guys from your roster. Training is different every day. You have to be so flexible and adaptable. So that's going to be a challenging job for us to fill, to find the right leader for those young kids, along with mixing in the veteran guys and the young guys together.
Next up is Chris's response to Doug Robertson's question about the reaction from fans with ticket prices going up for some in next season, and kind of what he would say to the fans about where things are with the club right now. Here's Chris's answer.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations with, Garth and I have talked, Demetrius, Skate, we're all kind of communicating on everything. Obviously, as Chief Soccer Officer, my focus is on getting a team that the fans support and love and that can compete. The one thing I would say is that we've been super appreciative. Our fans have been there. Every single game, our fans are there. The atmosphere that they have in Mercedes-Benz is I think, one of the best in the league. So I do feel that appreciation. I know our players and coaches do as well. For us, we want to get a team that this city's proud of, and we're working on it every single day. My focus is on building that team, and we're gonna be active this window, as I spoke about. We're gonna be active in January as well, and I look at it as like a GPS. When I get in the car and I put in where I'm gonna go, my destination, I trust that it's gonna get there, and I think that's what we have our plan. We have to stick to our plan. There may be some moves that happen as we make moves that people are like, I'm not sure if I understand that move, but hopefully, as this plan comes together, you'll look and you'll see the replacements or the other moves that we make, and it will start to become clear of, okay, now I see what they're building.
I think it's important to hear that this team's going to be active in transfer windows to get better. I don't know if you'll be in a spot, maybe ever, in this league where you just decide to take a window off. I think when you're not winning things, you have to use every window to get better, and you're probably not going to fix it all in one window. It's just very difficult to do. Again, going back to the idea of having to move on from players to get better in positions. In a cap league, you don't have unlimited funds, you don't have unlimited assets, you don't have unlimited space. So sometimes you have to write out a contract. That contract ends, opens up space. Sometimes you're able to trade that player. Sometimes you're able to sell that player. Sometimes you're able to buy a player out. But you can't do all of it at once. So you have to find the balance in all those things. Things change along the way as well. Players develop, players regress. There's never a time where I think you can just stand pat. But when things aren't going well, that's absolutely not that time. And I like that Chris is making it very clear that he's aggressively trying to change it. It doesn't mean that every move that happens individually fixes everything. It doesn't mean that every set of moves fixes everything, but it means that the effort is there to fix it and the work is going into it. And it's not just haphazard. It is thought out work. Hopefully it is work that comes to a good conclusion and the team is better. And we might see some of that here the rest of this season in 2025. And we might not see all of that until next year. We might not see all of that till next summer. There could be some moves that have to happen next summer. There could be some fine tuning next summer, which is kind of where you're hoping you are. You hope that this summer and next winter make you a better team. Next year is going to be a different season entirely. You're going to have a World Cup in the midst of it. You're going to have a break during the World Cup. What all of that looks like, we don't know at this point. I think it does create some opportunity with players who decide that they want to stay in the United States or maybe are more interested in coming to Major League Soccer after the World Cup who've played in it. So you might have an opportunity, even if you're pretty happy with where you are, to get even better after that World Cup. So don't come into this expecting that 2 windows, everything's good, and you're going to keep the same team for 3 years. It's just not going to happen. That's not the nature of soccer these days. Liverpool won the Premier League, and they went out and spent more money than they have in a long time to try to get better. Other teams have not had a great season. They went out and spent money to try to get better. They're not dealing with salary caps either. You have to always try to make your team better. And I think you're always assessing it. And as Chris has always told us on pregame shows, you're not just looking window to window. You're looking windows ahead. And you have strategies of the next window, the window after that, and the window after that, and the window after that of where you'd like to be. Of course, things change, but you have a long-term plan. You want that GPS always pointing in that direction, even if sometimes it flashes up that, hey, you got some traffic here, and you're going to have to go a different direction. You've got another route. Do you want to take it? Yep, that's where things are. Next up, Doug asked about the deal with Efrain Morales, and I thought Chris Henderson, one, I'm really happy that he went into as much detail as he did about the situation with Efrain, and hopefully people hear this and hopefully people understand that this was not just moving a player on with nothing else around it. There was a thought process on both sides of this. And this is Chris Henderson explaining how everything went down when it came to the Efrain Morales trade.
That leads to my next question. Efrain Morales had become a starter, sold. He's pursuing a degree at Georgia Tech, which I know is not y'all's concern, but it kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Was he we have to sell to get this GAM to make other moves?
Yeah, I mean, first I would add the Georgia Tech thing is something that was important to us.
Okay.
So Efra and I sat down in January, and he came and said, look, I want to be loaned. I want to be playing games. What can we do to work together? So we started working together. We had many conversations. Really smart kid, been part of this organization. And he said, could you not do anything till May? I have classes that are going to end in May. So after May, can you find something?
Gotcha.
So we have had constant conversations going back and forth. I think this is a great opportunity for him. We obviously are making moves that might affect his playing time again. The value of creating $500,000 in GAM of him, and the opportunity that we can share future sell on with him. So we're all still invested in Efra. And he was happy. He was. I thought the conversation, the ongoing relationship, was really good. So I think he left the club in a really good way and appreciative. And we're rooting him on to have success.
Yeah, I didn't know that Efrain had asked for a loan, and everything was kind of planned around where his semester was with Georgia Tech and then what was coming up. And I think it's something that has often gotten lost in the shuffle with moves that Atlanta United has made. And this predates Chris Henderson. This includes moves that Carlos Bocanegra made, moves that Darren Eales made. I believe that far more often than not, this club has tried to do right by players, to the point that Carlos Carmona wanted an out after year one. Even though he was a very important part of the team at that point, he wanted to go back to Chile. Team made it happen. It's happened in other cases too, even if the narrative has conveniently changed some of it. And it's been frustrating at times when that happens. Leandro Gonzalez Perez, as Carlos Bocanegra said, had an opportunity to make a lot more money at Tijuana. Unfortunately, Tijuana didn't end up paying him like they were supposed to, but that's out of Atlanta United's control. You've got situations where I think this club has tried to balance doing business for the team and making the team better, keeping people when they can keep people, giving people raises when they can give people raises, but also when players want a move or want something, acquiescing to that as best as they can. It is a sports team, it is a business, but it's not always easy to make all of those things work. And I don't think it's a surprise in an Arthur Blank owned business that you see a club that tries to take care of its people. I highly recommend, if you haven't already, watch the Rooted in the Stripes episode that just posted last night and listen to what Kenny Miller says when they're on, I believe, a Zoom call with a player or an agent, and talking about what the club does for its people, and coaches included, in terms of making sure they're settled, making sure they can focus on work. That goes into the other side of it too. When it's time for a relationship to change or end, I think the club typically, wherever they can, tries to do the right thing for players. Again, this is a club that let Joseph Martinez go to a rival. They helped facilitate that. So just keep these things in mind when you see outrage about Efrain Morales and the trade without hearing how everything actually went down, because Chris breaks it down in a little bit different way than some on the internet have. And I think what Chris breaks down is far more consistent with what we've seen from this team and how people have been treated in general. That doesn't mean you can give everybody everything they want. That doesn't mean you can make every raise happen the way that it wants. It doesn't mean you can do those things. It doesn't mean you're perfect either. But I would say this club, far more often than not, has tried to do things the right way. And it's not a surprise that there were conversations consistently with Efrain Morales that included his time at Georgia Tech and what that meant, and trying to do things in the best way possible for all involved. I want to end with the last question of the media availability. I drew the short straw, and I ask a question Kind of about, because I think it's easy to forget, Chris has seen this league from day one as a player, as an executive. He's been on the coaching side as well. He gets it in a way that very, very few people in the United States do. And I wanted to ask him to try to encapsulate a little bit, especially over the past few years, how things have changed and what kinds of players are necessary to be successful in this league. Here's Chris's answer. In your time in the league, and especially over the last few years, how have you seen the kinds of players that you have to go get to be successful in this league change?
Yeah, good question. I think what I've noticed in the last 5 years is that players now are wanting to come to MLS from around the world at really good in their prime ages. And it wasn't like that before. It was, oh, I'm going to play 1 or 2 more years and then I'll go to MLS. And at that point, we don't want, it's not necessarily you want the player unless he's was a top level player globally. So I think you're getting a new group of players that are wanting to come to our league, which is a great thing for our league. And we have to make sure that we are a club that players want to come to. And you look at this building, you look at our stadium, we have everything in place, and now we got to get a winning team that can support those types of players coming.
Great insight from Chris Henderson. I was really happy he took so much time for the media and took a lot of different kinds of questions. I hope you have a little bit better sense of where things are. There were things that I didn't know, like I said, about Efrain Morales. There were things that I didn't know the detail when it comes into the process of bringing players in. There were a lot of things that I learned during this. Hopefully you guys have learned something too. You can watch the whole media availability on the Atlanta United YouTube if there's more things you want to dig into. But we will have plenty of coverage as we get ready for match day on Saturday. Atlanta United and the Seattle Sounders, another team that Chris Henderson knows very, very well. Seattle come into town for the first time in a while at the Benz. Kickoff will be at 7:40 on Saturday night. Pre-game coverage on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app will start at 6:30 with Abe Gordon and Madison Cruz. Mike Conti and I will take over at 7:40. And Chris, since he hasn't answered enough questions as of late, he will join us at about 6:55 to answer a few more questions from Mike and I. Hopefully you can be with us either in person at the Benz or on the radio or on the Odyssey app or on Apple TV's MLS Season Pass by choosing the Home Team Radio option.